Do you guys ever reach out to Japan or Korea or China to bring people in? Is there any interest from that side to come over and help with Mortal Kombat?
No, not really.
All right, guys. One of my best pieces of advice that I would always give people is bite off more than you can chew and then chew it. So I did that, and that put me a little bit behind. So I'm sorry about getting the rest of this stream breakdown with Mike Hollow, Tom Brady, and Bloodcount up. This is a continuation of that podcast, so you can watch the rest of this playlist to get the rest of the breakdown. We've been covering some pretty gnarly subject matter, and to put me through the suffering of hearing all that bad news, and yeah, we're gonna do some more. So buckle up, get ready for the party, and try not to be too depressed. All right, guys, I'm Soul Honey Badger. I'm literally going through the worst podcast I've ever gone through in my life. Not that the podcast is bad in quality, it is bad in content. We have Mike Hollow, a gaming journalist. On the up and coming, we have Tom Brady, who is a notable professional player and longtime competitor. And we have Bloodcount, who is an ex-developer for NetherRealm Studios. They have worked on, to the best of what we've seen so far, MKX 11 and MK1, also some of the Injustices, and specifically they are the designer for the current games Nitara, Rico, Shao, and Baraka designs. So yeah, it's been very enlightening listening to this podcast, but not in a good way. It's been a lot of bad news, and yeah, it's been kind of a heartbreaking journey. So if you're still listening to me, and you're still on, and you're still following along, like, yeah, just let me know like how badly this is hurting you to listen to as it's hurting me.
Weren't hardcore former pro players. They weren't hardcore fighting game people in general. It's just like, hey, we need a systems designer that knows C++ that can help with like modifiers and economy stuff or player progression stuff. And so, we would bring in somebody that worked on an MMO as a systems designer with player progression, and so they could help out with MK11's or Injustice 2's gear leveling system or something like that. But when it came to the combat designers that do the characters, that's a very niche thing. Like, yes, like they brought me in as an associate and trained me and then gave me Liu Kang and MKX to get my feet wet, and then Jason and Leatherface. Wow. But unfortunately, like the other younger talent that came,
they just grabbed this dude off the streets who's a game designer or a software coder, and they gave him a crash course in like high level fighting games, and then said, "Here you go. Here's Liu Kang." Like the absolute lack of care. Like, they're treating their product as if it were McDonald's, but expecting us to pay 5-star for it. They've always advertised Mortal Kombat as a luxury game, right? It's packed to the brim. The games are $60, but we make sure you get your $60 worth, right? A luxury game. But to hear that they put about as much effort into it as a local McDonald's, it's just like, dude, that is wholesale robbery on a massive scale.
Man, like they just, I don't know, maybe it was their work ethic or something. They just couldn't get it. But then we also did get a good mid-level designer that also had C++ background, and I think he's now an advanced designer, which means he's a little higher than senior. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you get lucky with hires, sometimes you don't. But again, with fighting games, especially in the game industry, it's a very, very small nuance of people.
Do you guys ever reach out to Japan or Korea or China to bring people in? Is there any interest from that side to come over and help with Mortal Kombat?
No, not really. I mean, there's Ukes, but
literally the fucking people that invented the genre, right? Like, no interest or desire to bring in someone from Japan. I can understand China and Korea. The Koreans and Chinese are very well known for being good at the games, but I think there's like one Chinese fighting game, and I don't know of any notable Korean ones. And the Chinese fighting game is basically just a repurposed King of Fighters, which I heard is actually a very good take on King of Fighters. That Chinese King of Fighters has a pretty substantial fan base. People like it. So like there are decent developers in China, and I imagine there would be in Korea, but like there's no like known developmental studios from there. However, to show that there's no interest in poaching talent from Japan, like the country where we got every other fighting game that's not Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct. Like literally go on Steam and look at all the big fighting games. Even the ones that don't even seem like fighting games. Dragon Ball, right? That's just a cartoon. Nope, that's Japanese, right? X-Men, that's an American cartoon. Japanese people, like I don't want to criticize that, right? I don't. But it is an interesting thing to note that they don't want any Japanese input. It makes sense, right? They want to. That's the competition, right? Mortal Kombat has always prided itself on being an American fighting game made in America by an American team with an American perspective, and that's one of the reasons why I've stayed loyal to the franchise for the longest time. Because I'm an American and I want to back my people and promote my culture and values. Because I believe in American superiority as far as cultural values. Because there's no American race, so don't sit there and tell me that I'm racist. You could call me nationalist, and I'm like, yeah, I think everybody in their country, I think Chinese people should be nationalist towards their country, and Japanese people, right, and a nationalist for Japan. So, and I'm nationalist towards America, so I've always supported Mortal Kombat as our fighting game made by us in the direction that we wanted to go in. And so, again, I'm not criticizing this point. I find it interesting. And again, I would honestly go that route myself. I would be like, do I want to come in and have the guy who fucking made Street Fighter turn my game into Street Fighter? Or do I want to do something completely different that nobody's ever seen before? Like, yeah, there is a certain level of expertise that outside developers from, rival resources could contribute. But then you have to ask yourself, what kind of game are we making? Are we making Tekken? Because we hired the Tekken guy and he's adding a lot of Tekken stuff, and so I can see why they wouldn't want to do that. And I don't want people to think that that's a bad thing. This is probably the best news I've heard all day with this freaking podcast, is that at least NetherRealm was like, no, we're going to do it ourselves, sink or swim, right? They half-assed it, clearly, but at least they're not like running for help. Like, oh shit, we clearly are in over our heads. Let's ask Harada to come in, or let's go poach a guy from the Blaze Blue studio. Like, they didn't do that. They at least banked on their own vision. So that's actually like good. The first good thing I've heard. But I had to pause that because I imagine a lot of people are going to criticize them for that. Like, yo, dude, Arc System Works makes like the best fighting games ever. You're telling me you wouldn't want one of them? And it's like, yeah, but like then you're just going to make an Arc System Works game. Like, I kind of am with NetherRealm on this one. This is like one of the only good decisions that they've made.
Always like a wrestling studio.
I remember Ukes.
Killer Instinct. Once Amazon bought out Double Helix, Microsoft did buy the IP and they gave it to Iron Galaxy because Iron Galaxy had some former Midway Chicago people I don't know if they all worked on Mortal Kombat in the 3D era, but they were from Midway,
A
Chicago.
lot of them did. You had Winston that went over there, and Delvitz went over there. So
Well, and also Keats. So Keats is someone I've met. I've talked. I love Keats. I love Keats to death. I have like Evo pictures with him. He was from that area, the Chicago area. I don't know if he lived in Chicago, but he was in that like Great Lakes area. Who eventually worked at Iron Galaxy. And so I can tell you, the guys who made Killer Instinct, they're legit, dude. Keats was one of the top Tatsunoko versus Capcom players. Like, that's how deep in fighting games Keats, one of the main guys at Iron Galaxy, or no, he wasn't at Iron Galaxy. It was after I'm getting it mixed up. Yeah, Iron Galaxy got bought out. Keats worked at the group that came in afterwards, I believe, but he's legit. The guys behind Killer Instinct are like fighting game demons, bro. They are legit. Don't think that Killer Instinct was made by the passionless people at MK. I've met Killer Instinct devs. There's a lot of love and care that went into that game, and that's why we're still fucking playing it.
Rich Winston went over there. But I'm just curious, because you brought this up, and I guess we don't talk about it much. During MK9, we didn't really have like matches going off like that. Like, it was just, and MK9 was released in the MK9 state. But it was still fun. But it was just a bunch of testers, guest testers, and the QA we didn't really mix. Ferrier would come over a little bit, and maybe Adam Hernandez would come over for a little bit, but not too much. You noticed a huge difference once they hired Stephanie. There was a lot when she was still a competitor, and during Injustice 1, I mean, there were matches going on nonstop. Like, while I was there, I stayed with Dizzy and Stephanie and, with Rio as well, because he was there as a tester. And there were matches going on constantly in Injustice. I mean, constantly. And in MKX especially, even more so in MKX than anything else. I think MKX had the most amount of QA testing from a competitive level that I've ever seen in the history of NRS. There was just matches going on constantly. People were playing each other nonstop.
It's like the results show, right? You can see it. Like, everybody talks about how great MKX was, and it's like, bro, when you see they were constantly playing it, they were grinding it, they were loving it. You could see the results. Like, these people loved MK when they made X, and then X came out, and all of us shared in that love. We were all like, MKX is dope. This is good. You see it. Everything fell off from there.
We got the most amount of guest testing time, the most amount of input. It was the most I've ever seen QA have former tournament players there. And of course, MKX probably had the most hype launch of any Mortal Kombat game ever. And it was probably the most well-received at launch. And there's just...
Right, I'm gonna stop this clip here because I have to get ready for my actual stream. I stream Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 8 p.m. or 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I have to get that ready. I'm gonna finish this later on, but I want to end this clip with a quote. Okay, you will know a tree by its fruit. A good tree will make good fruit. A bad tree will make bad fruit. We saw that Mortal Kombat X was good. It is unanimous that was good fruit. We are seeing now in this moment in time that Mortal Kombat 1 is not doing so good, and Mortal Kombat X before it didn't do as well either. So it is safe to say that we went from good fruit to bad fruit. We don't blame the fruit, though. Okay? We had a good tree, but right now that tree is not giving us good fruit. Just got to be good, man. Just got to be good. Hey, so if you follow YouTube enough, you know that they like to put weird stuff all over the screen for the last 30 seconds. So this is going to fill that space. Yeah. Probably right there and there. All over the place right now. Go ahead and click that stuff if you want. And that's 30 seconds.